install the rear spoiler extension from Aerofabb, and let me show you what comes inside, what tools you need, and we'll get on with the install. So before we start this install, let's make sure we have all the tools required, and before we start taking everything apart, make sure all the hardware is here. So first of all, the things we'll get from Aerofabb will be the spoiler extension itself and a hardware kit. And like I said before, in the hardware kit, make sure you have everything. So you got your Sour Patch Kid, very important. Alcohol prep pad, 3M adhesive promoter, 4 of these washers for the outside, 4 of these black bolts, 4 of these small washers for the inside, and 4 nylon locking nuts. So I laid all the tools out here and I'll just go through it with you guys. Aerofabb does a great job with their instructions, so be sure to read it thoroughly and always read the notes section because there's some important stuff there that will get you through this as easily as possible. So let's run through the tools that we will need. First, we'll need a drill and 4 drill bits. We're gonna use all 4 because we're gonna start from smaller to bigger, stepping up so we don't crack the plastic that we're drilling through. So the drill bits we will need will be a 3 30-second drill bit, a 1/8 drill bit, a 5 30-second drill bit, and a 3/16 drill bit. You'll need a ratchet extension with a 10mm socket. You'll need a 3mm hex wrench. You need a heat gun, or you can use a blow dryer if you prefer or don't own a heat gun. A razor blade or X-Acto knife, whichever one you want to use. Detail spray or glass cleaner. We got some glass cleaner here that will be used as our lubricant when we're cutting through the adhesive. A small flathead screwdriver. That will be for popping off the washer fluid hose and the clip that's attached to the third brake light. And last but not least, we will be needing painter's tape to protect the spoiler and hatch from getting any cuts when we're cutting through the adhesive. So the first step will be popping your hatch. We're gonna remove this trim cover and this little rubber grommet to access the 3 10mm screws. I pre-popped it so it's easier to film, but there's 4 metal clips right here that's holding the rest of this trim. And then this is just a rubber grommet. You can pull it with your fingers and it just comes off. Now underneath we got the 3 nuts exposed. It's a 10mm like mentioned before. And we're gonna loosen all 3 of them. Be careful not to drop it because that'll be a pain to get out. Now that we have the 3 nuts off, we can close the hatch and separate the side spoilers to the top spoiler using an X-Acto knife. And if it's not hot outside and you're doing this indoors, you can use a heat gun to loosen up and soften the 3M that's there. Now before we use a heat gun to heat up the adhesive, we're gonna 3M the area so when we're cutting, we don't cut into the spoiler, the side spoiler, or the body. I'm only gonna film this side, but it'll be the exact same process on the other side. So just remember to make sure you mask your area off to protect it. So let's go ahead and heat the area up. You can use an X-Acto knife or a blade, whatever you've got. I'm gonna use this one here. And just be careful not to scratch any of the items. Even though you have tape, there's still a chance that this can cut through. Now it's also recommended to push up on the spoiler so you get more gap. And you're gonna just find the adhesive and just cut through it. Once it loosens fully, you'll be able to see the adhesive. It looks like it's gummy. And when you start popping these clips, if it's not fully released, the adhesive is not fully cut, then you can pop it up, you'll see it. And as it's up, you can slice it even more. Just be careful and then do the other side. Now that both sides are cut and ready to go, we're gonna start the process of detaching the spoiler from the entire hatch. So if you read the instructions, it says that there are 4 clips Now, let me show you on our other trunk piece so you can see. As you can see here, there's a clip here, 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 and over there. And these are the clips that you're gonna have to be popping off, which is why in the instructions, it says, push this down and pull this side up. What you wanna do is push down here, and then get your fingers under and pull. And then once it's pretty much released, it'll be pretty loose, but the adhesive here will probably be stuck still. So let me show you that. So I'm gonna remove the tape just so we can have a better view of what's going on behind there. And this is where the knife will probably be handy again. It's loose now. There's still the adhesive holding on. We wanna pop this up just enough. Take our knife and be careful not to cut anything else. Just go through the adhesive again. And now this is fully released there, as you can see. I will do the same for the other side. So now that it's loose, we can go ahead by popping it up. Now once it's up, we can put the entire spoiler back a little bit. And then you're gonna need a flathead screwdriver, something thin, kind of like a tuning or a tuner screwdriver. And that will help you pop the washer fluid clip up. And once that's up, you can pull this off, just like this. So now that's released. And then we can pull this forward, go up, and then I would actually bring it around like that and be very careful. And you need to pull this clip off. The tab is actually like against the spoiler itself, so I would also use this. I would rotate it 90 degrees and then push up, and you should be able to pull this off. I'll plug it back in and get a closer view so you guys can see it, but this one will be harder to remove than the washer fluid. So basically what I'm doing is I'm putting the screwdriver in, turn it 90 degrees so it's this way, and prying up like that to push the tab. So I'll do it one more time so you can see. Push it there, push up, and that should just pop right off like that. Very easy, you don't need much force at all. And now this is off, and we can continue the install for the rest of the spoiler. So now that the spoiler is off of the car, we're gonna place it on a clean, non-abrasive flat surface. We're now gonna get the spoiler extension ready and the spoiler from the hatch prepped so that we can join these two together. So what we're gonna have to do to the spoiler extension is remove these two backings, which is labeled A on the instructions, and partially remove B, which is both of these on the instructions. So now that the adhesive tape is ready to go, we're just gonna push that to the side and then work on the spoiler. Now we're gonna prep the spoiler. With the provided alcohol pad, we're just gonna go through the area where the adhesive is gonna stick, which is gonna be here, here, and roughly around this area. Now that we're done wiping it down with the alcohol pad and letting it dry completely, it is time to use the adhesive promoter provided from them. So to use this, we're gonna shake it up well, and at the dot here, we're just gonna crush it. So after breaking it, the adhesive promoter is ready to use. After applying it, we're gonna wait 5 minutes for it to dry. Okay, so now that the adhesive promoter is done curing, it's been 5 minutes, we're gonna put the spoiler extension onto the spoiler, line it up, make sure it's perfect how we like it. Be sure not to push this down right away until we are sure how the positioning is and that it's lined up flush to the edge and the brake light is clear. Once that's done, then we can fully push double side tape A down on both sides, hold for 30 seconds, and then when that's good, we're gonna remove the rest of the backing of the 3M for the B 3M and fully push down for 30 more seconds around those areas. And once we're done, then we can go to the next step, which is drilling. But first, let's get that spoiler onto this spoiler. I forgot to note that because the spoiler extension is gonna add some length to this, we're gonna have to raise the spoiler up on 2 pieces of rubber or something soft so that we don't damage anything. So I just put 2 rubber blocks underneath to raise up the OEM spoiler, so then when we line this up, we have room to go this way. So let's start. So I'm happy with the positioning of how the spoiler is sitting. So we're gonna push down firmly on these 2 sections where the 3M is. 30 seconds. Now we're gonna do the other side, another 30 seconds. So now that it's stuck down on both sides of the A adhesive, we can go ahead and remove the adhesive for the B side. Now we're gonna put it back down, and for 30 seconds again, we're gonna hold down the spoiler all the way through. And note, when we're applying pressure to this bottom part now, we're gonna work from the inside out. And you don't have to push all of it down at the same time. We can go slowly and do intervals of 30 seconds, maybe 3 sections on each side, but you wanna make sure you go from the inside out. So now that the adhesive is fully pressed down, fully secured, it's time to drill the holes out to install those hardware. So as mentioned before, we have 4 drill bits. We're gonna start from the smallest one and go to the biggest one. Reason being is because if we go straight to the biggest one, we risk cracking the plastic of the spoiler. So if we work our way from smallest to largest, there'll be little to no risk and possibility of us cracking the plastic on the spoiler. So when drilling the holes, make sure you get it as centered as possible. You want to probably push down the spoiler extension onto the spoiler, kind of like clamping it down, so then you get that flush fit, so you're not going to be having weird angles or anything like that. So we just moved up a size. We're now up on the 3rd sides. And lastly, we're gonna do the final size. I'm just gonna blow the area so there's no debris. And now we're gonna move on to the other side. Again, same steps. We're gonna start with the smallest to the largest. Now that the holes are fully drilled out, it's time to install our hardware. So for this part, we have our ratchet, our 3mm Allen, 8mm wrench, and the hardware. So before I put it on, I'll show you how the hardware will go. It'll be the bolt through the finishing washer, put it through the spoiler and the spoiler extension, and then it will be smaller washer and locking nut to finish it off. So even though we passed through the hole with the drill bit a few times, it's still a little tight where the bolt won't go through right away. So what we can do is use the 3mm hex and just screw it in. Now we're gonna use the washer and the nut. So now that the spoiler extension is fully installed onto the factory spoiler, we're gonna put it onto the car. Okay, so now we're gonna install the spoiler onto the car. And to do that, we're gonna wanna plug the third brake light back in. And then we're gonna flip it over. We're gonna get that washer nozzle put back in with the clip. Just make sure that that's secured and the third brake light secured. And when installing this, you want to be as flat as possible so everything will kind of just work in nicely. I just noticed that one of the clips wasn't lined up, so I'm going to use a flat head to move it over. And see how that went down nicely. You don't want to force this down at all. It should just go in smoothly like that. We're just gonna push down so the clips click in. Just like that. I'm gonna pop the hatch open now. I'm gonna re-secure the spoiler with the 3 10mm nuts. Now that the 3 nuts are tightened down, we're gonna put the covers back on. We can close the hatch now. So what we're gonna do before we finish off, we're gonna apply pressure all the way through for 30 seconds in each area, just so that we know for sure that that 3M is fully stuck on, because you don't want this thing to be flopping around. And that's your final look.